All right. So let's talk about backups. Now, most people have a backup. It doesn't really matter what it is. And it usually consists of being copied information from your production environment into either a secondary environment or onto a hard drive or a USB drive. One of the problems with backups is as long as you're following the 3-2-1 rule, so 3 copies of all data in 2 different locations and one of those locations is offsite, then if something does go pear-shaped, you are going to be in a better situation than if you didn't have one. The problem with backups, however, is the simple fact that people don't test them. And if you don't test them, then you have some major problems. So this is your data. This is your production area. And the production area literally is what you use to make your revenue. It doesn't really matter how it is. It doesn't matter whether it's based in the cloud. It doesn't matter how you look at it. Your requirements and your business requirements are going to have a lot to do with the data you collect or the data you process and the data you produce. So you have to make sure that if something goes wrong with your main production system, that you have a back to business as normal, as fast as possible capability. So when we're talking about the 3-2-1 rule, so we have 3 copies of all data. We have the production environment. We have a copy of the information, can be on the local system. And then we also have an offsite backup. Now, what the offsite backup is doing is collecting data that is not connected to the system. So by having 3 copies of all information, 1, 2, 3, in 2 different locations, this is your production environment, and this is your offsite environment, and one of them is not connected to the internet. This one is not connected to the system. Now, the reason why you do this, and this is significant in why we have to think along these lines. If you get a piece of malware on your system, for instance, cryptovirus, not only will it encrypt this data, but it will also encrypt this data. So when you go to recover, you have really nowhere to go because you haven't got access to your backup. And if this has been connected to the system in any way, the chances are the cryptovirus has contaminated it in some way. So we need to have this system in place that is disconnected from the network, but also is collecting the right amount of data. So we can now test this by going, we can't access this data. Let's see what we can do with the backup. Okay, can we restore it onto this system? Yes, we can. Can we restore it onto another system? Yes, we can. No, we can't. And the significant component of this is the yes, we can, no, we can't component. Because yes, if you can, is it all there? Is it, have you got the data? Have you got the application that allows the data to be collected? In addition to that, if something goes pear-shaped and this doesn't work, you have cryptovirus, you have this version of your data, which is either backing up regularly, doesn't really matter how regularly, so 24 hours, 12 hours, 6 hours, continuous backup. Now, the reason why this is important is your business is reliant on it. But in addition to that, this may be a cloud environment. We still need to keep the 3-2-1 rule in place. 3 copies. Yes, we've got stuff in the cloud already, so why haven't we got a copy on site? 2 different locations, up there and down here terrestrial, and one of them has to be disconnected from the system. So we still need those 3 components to allow us to do that. When we do a restore of data, there is always a good chance that the data will be incomplete in some way. Maybe it's missing files, maybe it's missing applications, missing capabilities. So by having that simple process in place that you are testing it, just to make sure that all of those things are in place. Now, the other part of backing up is what we call an image backup, which is literally a snapshot of what's going on in your production environment. Now, again, we can have a snapshot inside the organization, but because it's inside the organization, there's a very good chance that crypto virus will contaminate the system as well. Or we can have a snapshot that is outside the system. Now, a snapshot is a virtual image of what you consider important. And again, if we test it, we make sure that that system is actually going to do what it's supposed to do. The more times you test it, the more refined your recovery process gets. And it also tests to make sure that someone hasn't put something outside the backup regime, or hasn't spun up a new server in your environment, or hasn't taken a new instance up in your cloud. It doesn't really matter, but you'll then suddenly realize that that information is not part of your backup. And if it's not part of your backup, you already realize that before this little attack happens. And that's what you want, because you don't want this attack to be the first test of your backup system, because I can guarantee that there'll be data missing and you will have major problems getting data to work correctly. So when it comes to backing up your data, 3 copies in 2 different locations, and one of those locations has to be disconnected from the system, is your best bet.